This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. Greetings, Space and Family. This is Judy Villacruz Brandt. I am one of the board of directors for our Southern California chapter. Today we're in for a treat. We're actually going to be able to interview one of the Filipino American assistant vice presidents here at AT&T, along with my counterpart, Bert Cabello, who is our current FACES president. He will also be assisting in asking Elaine some questions with regards to how it is being Filipino American at AT&T, and on top of that, being a mom. It being Asian Pacific Heritage Month for the month of May, we thought that this would be quite appropriate to have Elaine. So Elaine, thank you very much for being a part of our interview today. We're going to call it Interview with the Boss Lady Part 2. So again, thank you for taking time out.
Well, thank you for having me.
So really quickly, everybody, I wanted to give you a little bit of Elaine's background, if I can embarrass you just a little bit. Elaine is the Assistant Vice President, as I mentioned, for the Office of the President. She's actually led some teams that interfaced with the FCC, state regulatory agencies, Attorney General, and has been a customer advocate in her organization. Elaine actually started in 1996, if you could believe it. Gotta love those Filipino genes, man. You look like you could have just joined out of college. And so she's been with the company since 1996. You've held various positions within the finance and customer roles. You've held key roles in director of direct sales, and pretty much you also developed a 3-year roadmap for DirecTV's commercial business, which is huge just in itself. But on top of that, I wanted to also mention that Elaine being the position she's at, she's also got her education to back her up with her experiences. Elaine has a bachelor's degree from UCLA and an MBA from Carnegie Mellon University, and is a long-distance runner. Oh my goodness, no wonder you have it all together. And then on top of that, you're actually a mom of 2, and you're married and live in El Segundo. So thank you, Elaine, for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. And just equally embarrassed, my counterpart, Bert Cabello Jr., he is the recent Southern California chapter president for FACES. He's the manager for the SLS program execution office here in San Diego. I actually want to put in my 2 bits. Bert and I actually knew each other back in college, me at San Diego State, Bert at UC San Diego. We were fraternity brothers and sisters. So Bert and I go way back, and I think our passion kind of drove into our company initiatives here because of the background that we've had back at school too. But on top of that, Bert has been the chairperson for various programs that we've had at Southern California, one of them being our bread and butter, which is our scholarship. So I hope Elaine will see you at the scholarship portion this year, if we could ever get past this whole COVID-19 thing. So as you can see, we're all kind of sheltering in place. So again, thank you very much, Bert, for also being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. Hey, guys.
All right. So let's go ahead and kick it off. It'll just be a series of questions that we want to get to know Elaine a lot better, and perhaps maybe our viewers can see and identify the things that she's gone through in her career that perhaps can maybe work into what we're personally going through now, and maybe just kind of look at you as this role model of someone that we potentially emulate. I know I've never even met you until today, but I already have that kind of connection with you just being Filipino American. So that said, Bert, I'll go ahead and kick off to you. Perhaps maybe a couple of questions, because I know I have 101 questions for Elaine.
All right. Well, thank you, Judy, very much for the warm welcome. And thank you, Elaine, for taking the time out during the day. I know it's a very busy time with, things going around with this COVID-19 and everyone working from home and just trying to, get back as business as usual in the workspace. So thank you again for taking that time. Being said that this is the Asian Pacific American Heritage Month in May, we have a series of questions just to, ask you, Elaine, and how how you're brought up into the office and whatnot, into the company too as well. So being a Filipino American, has it helped or hindered you as a woman in your current position?
Well, I have to say I am proud to be a Filipino American. It's just an important part of who I am. Both my parents came from the Philippines in their early 20s. They've never even left the country prior to that. And they came here and learned a new culture and started a life in a foreign country. And I'm so proud of them for successfully making a life here. They faced this hurdle coming from the Philippines, different culture, and we're successful. But I was born here in the United States, so I can't say I faced those same challenges. I grew up here. I went to school here. I learned everything I can being here. And as such, I feel like I didn't have those same hindrances or I don't think that being Filipino American helped or hindered me in my current position, but I hope I've always been evaluated on my work ethic and my accomplishments and that I just happen to be a proud Filipino American. I do hope that I can pass on that proud feeling of being Filipino American to my daughters, that they know where they came from and that heritage passes on. But in terms of my current position here at work, I just feel like it hasn't helped or hindered, but it has introduced me to organizations like FACES and people that we have shared interests with.
Nice. When's the last time you, or have you visited the Philippines?
Oh, I was there 2 years ago. It's the first time I brought my kids there. Completely new and different. They learned about mosquito nets and traffic and jeepneys and totally different, but they kind of appreciated it. I lived there actually for a couple years growing up. I understand Tagalog. I can speak Taglish, but I'm so proud to have had some opportunity to live there, lived in the provinces, lived in Manila. But yeah, 2 years ago was the last time. My parents still have a business in the Philippines, so they're there frequently.
Okay. So are your parents here in the States and did you go there to the Philippines, or they mostly stay
They go
over
back
there
and forth.
Philippines?
Yeah.
Go back and forth, okay.
They're here now, obviously, no traveling, but they're back and forth pretty frequently.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Because the last time I visited the Philippines was, wow, I don't know, I think it was 86.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I know we wanted to take the kids there, just trying to find out the time and everything. So, but
Yeah.
I'm sure your experience was quite well, and had fun, especially when your two daughters being there too as well.
It was great, and my kids were happy because there's Netflix everywhere we went.
So there was no real culture shock in essence, was there? I know that a lot of kids, or even just Filipino Americans that go to the Philippines for the first time, a lot of them say that it's culture shock, and then others say, no, I didn't see any difference, but I guess it depends on the types of provinces or locations that you go to in the Philippines. And so you mentioned that you were in pretty much Metro Manila, right? So
yeah. Okay. I think the food, because my family still cooks Filipino food, so they weren't shocked with different type of food, but like I said, the mosquitoes were a big deal with the mosquito nets and lost electricity for a little bit. So it's just some of the normal conveniences that we're used to, but it was a good experience, and I hope to bring them back again.
That's very interesting. And I also loved hearing how, just in your career alone, that for the most part, you're measured by your talents, your experience, which we all should be. And I'm glad that it never even really hindered or helped your career in some respect. And so it's just, you being a Filipino American, and then that's who I am, in the company. But I wanted to also explore the differences in diversity and inclusion in our company. Have you seen, in your experience, I guess the saturation of various types of different cultures like our own, like Filipino American? I know you are few and far between for me to see somebody similar to me in the position of what you're at. And I also spoke with Alyssa Moore, who was also part of our Boss Ladies interview. And she says that sometimes when you go to these huge meetings and you take a look at the sea across you, there's no faces that look like ours. And so I wondered if you had the same experience. Or have you ever entered into a room and wondered, am I any different, or is nobody here looks like me, I guess?
You know, I think of it, unfortunately, in an organization, Jamie Barton's organization is a wonderful organization where there are a lot of women leaders. So the first thing that I gravitate to is, you know, other female leaders, lady bosses. And unfortunately, in her organization, there are a lot of people to look up to just share experiences with. And so that's the first thing I look to. In terms of other Filipinos, I maybe not as many as, you know, I would like, but for sure in my organization, I feel like there are a lot of female leadership. And I think that's super important. Recently, my daughter, who goes to USC, the other school, she was in a group. They were working on a business case, and it was all men and her. And she was feeling kind of intimidated because men tend to talk louder, are more forceful. And I said, sometimes as a woman, you have to bring your voice known. People tend to gravitate to kind of that louder, the louder voices or the bigger presences, and women usually have to compensate for that. And so I hope that people take that into account when they're in meetings and things like that. And I've always had that kind of coaching to make sure that you have your presence known. And when I see other women and other Filipinas, it's just encouraging. And I'm fortunate to be in an organization that encourages female participation.
I love hearing that. And you also made mention, and not to bash on my brother Bert here, but yeah, it's sometimes the perception. I'm part of construction and engineering, and being Filipino American, sometimes it's had its hurdles too, where I'm usually soft-spoken. But your personality, I think, is kind of similar to that of typical women, where it's just like you're very assertive in your own respect, but at the same rate, still subtle and reserved. What type of glass ceilings did you ever have to punch through being female in your organization, or being surrounded by, let's say, the male coworker, just to get your point across? What kind of finesse did you use to get your point across if ever there was some sort of conflict?
You know, I think just my personality, I tend to try to make my point based on facts and data. I am a data person. I was a math major at UCLA. I tend to try to justify things based on fact and data. The hindrances I have, and this might be personal to me, I'm short. And so when you're in a room of very tall people, it's hard to have conversations when you're trying to speak up. I had a mentor, also a female mentor who was short, and I asked her, how do you have, and she was our, what was she? I think she was one of our officers at DirecTV, but I asked her, how do you have meetings? How do you make your presence known as a short female? And she said, I always try to have meetings where we're all sitting. And she said, I sit on my leg to make herself taller. And so I was like, even those subtle things make a difference. And I share that today because I think it's actually a funny story, but it's so true. And that's a challenge that I've always had, but you know, I always tell my kids, don't ever make your height an issue.
Absolutely. Bert, I'm sorry, I keep taking all the questions.
I definitely feel that.
I wasn't kidding. I had 101 questions for you, Elaine.
No, definitely, and I feel the same sentiments there, Elaine, too, as well as my kids, because I know my kids. I mean, they're still very young and everything like that, but I feel like my daughter, she's going to be short, but she has a strong will too as well, and I know she's going to be a very powerful woman when she grows up. So thanks for that advice. I will definitely let her know that when she has meetings that, you know, this have meetings sitting down and sit in your legs. So I'll definitely let her know that. So, but to that point too, with you know, Faces being one of the EGs at AT&T. In your opinion, are the EGs, why are the EGs important and part of our company?
EGs, employee groups, they're such an important part, I think, of any large corporation. It's so hard, especially when you've got, a couple 100,000 employees. How do you make that more intimate and personal for you? And so I think being part of a group with shared interests can bring that feeling of intimacy and personal experience together. And I've just met so many people being part of the various employee groups. People are now part of my network. They give me guidance. And, when I'm in a meeting and I'm like, hey, yeah, I know you, it makes that meeting just go a little bit smoother. I couldn't advocate more for getting people involved in employee groups. It helps you to get involved in kind of community outreach, kind of shared goals, and because otherwise we'd just kind of be stuck in our day in, day out kind of work goals. And this brings us together in a more of a personal, more of a humanity-based way.
No, yeah, definitely. I also think that it also brings like little work-life balance too as well from the work, and then outside stuff in the community too as well. And then, like you said, it builds your network up. I'm meeting you, when I went to visit El Segundo, when I'm in Hung's group, and we know each other, and then we saw each other at the conference last year. We were like, they'd be like, hey, what's up, sister, and everything like that. So definitely, it does bring a little personal touch to it, the EGs. It does bring, more close-knit family, but it opens up, a lot of access to, and just access amongst everything. I mean, you have,
exactly what Bert said, right? It's the opportunity. I don't think someone like me would have been able to have an opportunity to even speak with you, Elaine, because like our paths probably wouldn't have crossed. And I just want to throw this statistic in there really quick. 2018 and 19, AT&T was the number one company that promoted diversity and inclusion, as Diversity Inc. stated. And so that's a huge testament to our company, AT&T, in itself. Bert says, I remember seeing you over at the EG conference in Texas this year. And so I almost wanted to segue. They're saying that it's probably going to be a virtual conference this year because it's part of the whole COVID shelter in place, I assume. And so making it a more of a lighter question, what are you doing to cope with like COVID-19 and this whole shelter in place right now?
You know what, I think it's different for sure. It's a new normal. I've always been part of this organization that's rather broad, and so I'm used to having WebEx meetings. It's rare. I think it's more rare for me to have meetings in person with people in the meeting together in place. So I don't think it's that much difference, but it is when you're here with your family and, they're trying to talk to you and make sure lunch is ready. And like I said, my daughter who's at USC, she's going through finals, and she said, okay, 11 o'clock, I'm having my final, everyone off the broadband. I can't lose my Wi-Fi. And I'm like, no, I'm having an interview. I need my broadband. And so it's the logistics that we have to remember, but it's kind of cool to have them around. We're definitely doing more games, more puzzles, more Xbox, and it's different, and I'm appreciating it. I'm appreciating the fact that we're out walking and doing more things that we've forgotten about. And I think when you can incorporate that with work, that fits into the work-life balance, and I think this time is a good reminder of that.
I couldn't have said it best. Some are calling this the great pause, where we're just kind of taking a breath. kind of slowing down from our fast-paced world and kind of showing that balance. That's what I do appreciate about you being in the position that you're at, and then also hearing you talk about your kids. You kind of found this formula to balance out your career and your home life. I know most moms, it being Mother's Day yesterday, we've had our challenges with trying to, and dads too, Bert, I don't mean to take anything away from Bert. There's challenges in balancing work and home life. And so I think it being kind of this whole stay-at-home order, for me anyway, it's proven to be kind of a blessing in disguise, if you will. And so Faces has this thing called Interfaces, which is our initiative right now to just kind of show people we're in it together. And then so, as you know, some people are going through perhaps maybe some depression, maybe some uncertainty with everything that's going on. What advice could you give everybody just to kind of stay upbeat and positive? Because you seem like you're very positive. So is there anything, any secrets that you have?
I think it's definitely physical exercise. I think people are afraid, there's so many things you can do inside the house. And I think endorphins are such an important part of keeping the positivity. So I still do a lot of my running, walking. I actually broke my foot late last year, so it's more walking this year.
Oh, no.
But even just getting out and making sure you get kind of that physical uplift every day. I would also say not to read all the negative press all the time. It is so draining. It's emotionally exhausting. And I would, and I always tell my kids, like, just read what's on, what the CDC is saying, read what the World Health Organization is saying. A lot of other stuff is just kind of noise, and it's not always true. And I've actually seen a lot of really good positive messages that are coming out right now, and I've tried to pass those along to my friends and to my team. This one piece that I just found really, really refreshing that someone shared with me is, after all of this is gone and past, we're going to look back and we're going to say, hindsight is 2020, which is like the play on this year 2020, which seems so awful, but we're going to learn a lot from this. And I love the fact that we're calling it's going to be hindsight 2020, where we're going to keep the best practices that we've learned from being at home. So I think there's just so much we can share.
Yeah.
Exactly. Elaine, to that point too, is with people starting their careers now, and with the hindsight 2020, what's your best advice that you can give people who just started their careers at AT&T, or people who are in the midst of their careers at AT&T?
The thing that I always tell people is that whether you're starting out your career or you're in the middle of your career, you can never have too much curiosity. I think every experienced leader, you can see that they're curious. They're always asking why. They are asking, how can things be better? Why are things the way they are? What are the possibilities? And that curiosity leads to change. It leads to improvements. It leads to engagement and advocacy of new and different things. And without that curiosity, things don't happen. And when I interview people, that's the first thing I look for. Are they curious? Are they asking questions? Are they just kind of happy with status quo? But I think curiosity is really key. Ask yourself, at least 3 whys before you proceed on a decision. And so I think anyone can benefit from that. And those are the people that stand out. The people that are asking, well, why are we doing it this way? Instead of like, okay, got it, check. And you'll be noticed. You'll be noticed when you are asking the questions.
No, that's definitely, you pretty much hit it on the head with that. Just, because with things changing constantly, you gotta be curious of why, and not just settling, going, not just settling, going, okay, and moving on to the next, So yes, that's definitely, I totally agree with you with the curiosity and asking the 3 whys. So,
Yeah.
So I have to flip it back. Have you always been a curious person? You kind of seem that way to me. And note to all of our viewers, she likes an inquisitive mind. So in case you're ever interviewing with her, so are you curious by nature?
I think I am, but it might have started as I'm also nosy. So I always like to know what's going on.
I stalked you, and I found you.
I think that's the Filipino way, though, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's all the aunties saying, "Oh, how much do you weigh now?" Or "What are you doing here? Who's your boyfriend?" Very straightforward questions of why, and maybe that is a Filipino culture. That's how my aunts are.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It seems like you have the same aunts and maybe even mom like me. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I think Bert, you had a question with regards to the women in their life, right?
Yes. And that's what I was going to ask you with the influential women in your lives. Like, how did they contribute towards you being, a boss lady? Like your aunts and uncles, your family members, your influential woman. Like, how did they contribute to you?
Like I said, I've been so fortunate. I've had so many women bosses. My first boss out of college was a woman. She was actually the one who taught me, you need to stand up for yourself in meetings. It's most of the time you're going to be with men. You need to make sure that your voice is heard. And since then, I've had so many great female bosses. Carmen Nava, when I first came to AT&T, she came and reached out and said, "Hey, do you want to come work for me?" And I was so impressed with her. Jody Garcia, she was another wonderful, wonderful boss. I think they've taught me so many different things. What it's like to push past barriers, what it means to influence other female coworkers and employees, and I've just been inspired by them. But this is going to sound cliche, and I'm sure people feel the same, but of all the women that have influenced me the most, of course, it's my mother, day after Mother's Day. But she truly is, I think, a pioneer. So she came here, she followed my dad, and she started off, they met as teaching assistants at University of Santa Tomas in the Philippines. And so they were well regarded. They are both engineers. And then they came here and kind of just started off kind of at the lowest rung and worked their way up. My mom is now a 40-year veteran of owning her own business. Still at age of 76, she's still running her company. Mm-hmm. But the key is, I think, is she still prioritized her family. And that balance has always been important to me. She always makes sure that she checks in with the family. Kids are important. She's learning how to use Zoom. So she's completely sheltering in place, but Zoom has become really important. So she's taught me about the balance. She's taught me about making sure that, like I said, your voice is heard, especially, coming from, I always think of Filipino culture as a lot of times accommodating, service-oriented, and just kind of accepting things and making sure other people are doing well. And but sometimes we have to speak up, we have to speak louder, because it's kind of in our nature to be more of a service-oriented group. The other thing I would say about Philippine culture is that matriarch kind of society where women have a say, and that's also what I've learned from her. Don't get me wrong, my dad's pretty loud, but my mom's tough. She's tough, man. She doesn't play, and I grew up that way. And even as tough as she is, she has the biggest heart and always caring about others. And and finding that balance as a working mom is super important. Otherwise, you just kind of go crazy because you think you're not doing enough in one area, but then you overcompensate in another, and then vice versa. It's just really finding that balance is key, and that's what she's taught me.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Especially being, yeah.
That's definitely awesome. No, that's basically like my mom too. I mean, my mom is pretty much not that going against my dad or anything like that, but she's mostly the predominant one. And yeah, we always go to my dad first. And what does my dad always say? Go ask your mom.
Ask your mom.
Yeah. Go ask your mom, right? So I think now my kids are saying, they don't even ask me. They go straight to my wife, and they pretty much ask her. And then I don't even know what's going on. And then I'm like, what are you guys doing? Because mom said, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Poor Bert. I'm glad that. Oh, sorry. No, I was going to say I'm glad that people can see someone like Elaine. You know, and again, for me, it's always been kind of hard to find this role model, if you would, that kind of balanced, motherhood and a career. My mom also being similar to your mom's background, but at the same rate, just here in AT&T, mostly the people that I've seen in the position, like they're, and no offense, I mean, like they're single or they have no children. And so I love being able to see a woman like you that was able to get there or achieve what you achieved with your children, with your family, and I think for us, me personally, I mean, being Filipino American, family's huge. It's just like you nailed it on the head with all your aunties and uncles and all that. Most of your aunties, your moms, and all that, still asking about your weight and who you're dating. But it's just, see how much connection that we have, and it kind of shapes the person that we are. Believe it or not, I'm actually a lot more introverted than I am. And so I'm glad you also mentioned that sometimes you have to speak up, and it's within our nature to be kind of not subservient. What's the word that you use? Service oriented. And so it's like people pleasers. We want to be people pleasers.
Yeah.
Is what I received from one of the other mentors that mentioned this. And so it's kind of been our own little glass ceiling to like get past that, and I'm glad that you're like, speak up, get noticed, ask these questions, And so for me personally, that's some great advice. Thank you, Elaine. Bert, I know you had a few more questions. I don't want to take too much of Elaine's time, but I wanted to, I guess there was one main question I think you had, how to promote EGs and diversity inclusion in our company. I'm sorry, I'm totally paraphrasing.
You just pretty much said it, Judy. So yeah, like how would you promote the diversity and inclusion in the EGs?
I think it's I think employee resource groups have started originally from kind of shared interests. People had similar interests, similar agendas. And I think it's important for us to remember that we need to see outside of ourselves, and joining groups that, you might not necessarily have kind of the same characteristics, same traits, same interests, opens you up to being a broader, more open-minded person. And I just remember Corey Anthony at one time talking about getting out of the echo chambers. Like if you're always with the same groups that say the same things, you're just kind of reiterating kind of the same things. So when you look at other, I think, employee groups where you have differing agendas, different interests, it kind of opens you up to different opinions and kind of broadens your awareness of other things that are going on. And so I would encourage people to join groups that are completely different, and it kind of brings you past just kind of tolerance to understanding, which is what they say, by being immersed in something completely different. And I would encourage everyone to join just a variety of different groups.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're really appreciative all the time. Oh, sorry.
One last question, and as out of personality or curiosity, well, to our viewers that will be watching this, what would be your best advice to them?
Best advice. I mean, I think it's just, keep doing what you're doing. Like I said, curiosity is great. Putting yourself out there, opening yourself up to different opinions, learning from other people. I am my leadership style is servant leader. I always make sure that I ask questions and learn from others and help to break down barriers. And I think we can do that for each other, especially during this time. It's just so hard. We have to rely on each other from a distance, and communication is key. So reach out, talk to each other. I open up every one-on-one I have with, hey, what are you doing? What'd you do this weekend? So it's not just about work, but it's just reminding ourselves that we are all people. And we are not here at work because we want to be at work. We are here as part of our overall taking care of our family and our friends, and it's just a reminder that we're all human. So I would just encourage everyone to reach out to other people, see how they're doing. That's part of being curious and nosy. And just get out there and take a walk in the middle of the day and get your exercise. I think it's just so much. So not one thing, but just a whole bunch of things I think I've said today, and just take that time to step back and remind yourself of your priorities. And it's not just heads down, WebEx day, hour after hour.
Definitely
really appreciate it. Yeah.
Yes.
And I know just with this interview alone, I know you've made an impact on me. So I'm hoping that with our viewers, you got to learn a little bit about Miss Elaine and also everything that she's kind of going through during this whole shelter in place. And on top of that, what she's done within her career, and learned a little bit about her background. In parting, I wanted to say thank you to my partner in crime, Bert Cabello, as well. Any parting words you wanted to leave with our membership?
No, thank you again, Elaine, for taking the time. I know it's a very busy time right now, especially what's going on. Thank you again, Judy, for setting this up. I couldn't do it without you too, as well as being my partner in crime. And to the Faces family, I mean, that's what we are. I mean, we're here for you in good times and bad. So if you guys ever need anything, please feel free to reach out. I mean, that's what we are. We're family, and that's what makes us different from other EGs. So.
Right on. All right. Thank you again, Elaine.
Thank you, and happy belated Mother's Day.
Okay, happy belated Mother's Day. All right, we'll get back to work now. Okay, bye, everybody.
Okay, bye, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.